Hello guys, good morning to everyone. Thank you for being here today in the midst of the midterm busy hustling week. I'm happy to introduce you to Mitch Brogan. Mitch is the Chief Executive Officer and the owner of the company Able Bionics. I also shared the Dragon Dance video, which has been posted in the CBC TV. You all know about Mitch, and you don't need much introductions. Mitch has been has developed a novel technology and has overcome various challenges in realizing the technology to potentially benefit the biomedical industry. I will leave the floor to Mitch and ask him to say a few words about him, and then jump right into the topic he would like to talk to us. Please join me in welcoming Mitch Brogan.
I was on Dragon's Den. I guess that's my claim to fame for my company, Able Bionics. So when he says develop a technology, I guess he means just develop sort of the idea around promoting the technology of exoskeletons, robotic walking devices. So I was hit by a drunk driver about 10 years ago, almost. September 16th was my 10-year anniversary. So I was on a bicycle, hit from behind. And that left me as a quadriplegic, so meaning like all four limbs affected. So, I can't only not walk, but I can't sort of like use my hands too well at all. I can sort of grip using kenodesis grip, which is like using your wrist so wrist up, grip, wrist down, let go. So I make do with that, and I type with my thumb knuckles. So on the keyboard. So that's kind of how I interact with the computer. So a little about me, I guess, before 10 years ago, I was, sort of a young, bright person like yourselves, trying to just find something good to do in the world. Went to school for activism and biochemical. I was gonna get into the biofuels industry. After I learned about biofuel. So I actually make biodiesel fuel now using waste vegetable oil. And then I was also a carpenter and a window cleaner, had my own window cleaning company. So that was me before. Musician, played a lot of guitar, can't do that anymore, played drums, keyboard, stuff like that, can't do that. But I've since found really interesting, sort of adapted, I guess, and found interesting musical gear to use. It kind of uses like a touch screen and a bunch of buttons and stuff. So I can make music again, which is kind of cool. So after my accident, I doctors didn't give me much hope as far as never gonna walk again and stuff like that. So, but my buddy, he sent me a link to an exoskeleton called ReWalk about a year after my accident, and and that kind of sent me down sort of my path. So I knew that ReWalk wasn't going to be the device for me, just because I was very disabled and couldn't use my arms. I'm sort of much better now as far as arm strength, but at that time I still had barely any arm strength. So I just kept looking into the technology, because that was sort of one of the first companies that came out. And I eventually found this company called Able Bionics that was from New Zealand, and they had a self-balancing robotic walking device. So it was the only one in the world that I could find. And so I called them up and I said, can I buy one of your exoskeletons? Can I come and try one? And they told me no. So I was, okay. And they told me that it's because they weren't comfortable with selling to the international community, and so I just kept bugging them every 6 months. I just every time a new Linux version of Ubuntu would come out, that was my date. I'd call them and be like, hey, can I come now? And so I inevitably got under their skin, and they said yes. So about 5 years after my accident, I went to New Zealand, tried it out. They made a trial version for me, and it worked great. I came up with a YouTube video for all my friends and family called Brogan. check it out if you want to. Love to get the hits. So yeah, walked, stood up, walked around, went up and down stairs and these things. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty badass. So I asked them to make me one. So I bought that, and I sort of toured around with it in the States for a while, showing it off at different events, and then just sort of using them wasn't enough, and I realized that like the technology wasn't being used in Canada, so sort of my thoughts were like, well, I can afford to get a device that other people can use, like an adjustable one. The Exo was sort of a big buzz one in the States at that time, so they're from California. And it's an adjustable rehabilitative exoskeleton. It's got variable assist in it, which so it not only is fully helpful, so like it does 100% powered, but it's also variably powered too. So say somebody with stroke or something who can put in some of the power, the robot will let you do that, and then we'll make up for the rest, kind of thing. So that's the first device that I got for the company, and then ended up developing sort of the idea that we can use multiple devices that cater to sort of like all different kinds of walking disorders. So we inevitably got the ReWalk, and we've got the rehabilitative ReWalk. We've got the Kyogo from Quebec City company called Bitemia, which is a dermoskeleton. So it's a sort of I guess the difference would be exoskeleton is something that you sort of, is a platform that you stand on, and it's like fully rigid. So so it's meant to carry your not your weight, but I guess your whole frame. And then a dermoskeleton just kind of attaches to your skin or to your body without going under your feet. So got that. We just recently got the Upseat, which is a UK technology, really simple. I couldn't believe that like nobody's ever thought about it. I didn't think about it, but it was just sort of a harness for kids between ages of 1 and 8. And the harness attaches to the waist of an adult. And then there's like large adult shoes attached to little children's shoes on the inside. And then sort of the adults can like take kids for a walk. So if they can't walk already, then it's kind of, I'm marketing it as the friend and family powered walking device, so for kids. So it's great because we've had a lot of calls for stuff for kids, and we were just never able to like say, yeah, we can offer anything, because there wasn't really anything available. And in fact, we're working with some young entrepreneurs from Toronto right now who are developing the first children's robotic walker too, called Trexo. So we're really gunning for being able to assist children in doing gait therapy and walking. So yeah, that's sort of the technologies that we're using. We're always getting sort of new devices sort of in the radar. Like a company from Russia just contacted us with an exoskeleton for paraplegics called the Exo Atlet. So just there's more of these coming down the pipe. So it's really interesting to develop a company sort of around the idea that there's a lot of different people with a lot of different walking disorders who could use, like, maybe one might not be for one, but they might be able to use another one. So so I hope this company model will work. Right now we've gone from being a clinic, like one clinic that people go to and then work on the device, and now we're our new company model is a service company. So we service clinics, and we deliver our exoskeletons to them when scheduled, and then they join our sales network. So if they have a client that's interested in walking and then possibly purchasing a device, then we help them to over the bridge for that, and we provide the equipment to them. So that's that's Able Bionics. I also have a company, just sort of a serial entrepreneur. I love this stuff. I've got a company too that we have a transitional living home. We just started actually. It's called Passage TLC, and so it's for people with disabilities coming out of hospital, or waiting to have their home renovated, or purchase a new home or something like that, or waiting for whatever reason, or for respite care as well. So if somebody needs, like a family member needs, sort of time off and take care of the family, then they can stay at this home, and there's 24-hour care and stuff. So that's my other business. And I also just bought into a company we do web content. It's called Homopho. And we do like it's mostly listicles, but content on video games, movies, TV shows, cosplay stuff. So if you ever see those things at the bottom of your web pages that's like, hey, more on the internet, that might be us. So I'm sorry about that. But it is good stuff. Anyway, I guess that's my entrepreneurship in a nutshell. I've also been to International Space University, and took management and business there, but worked closely with students to sort of create projects and like think of ideas, and a lot to do with like engineering and stuff too. So our project there was a space exoskeleton that I thought of for astronauts, because I saw that astronauts were coming back to Earth from space, and they were having a lot of back problems. They would be carried away from the spaceship, and then they'd have back problems for a while. They'd usually stretch in space, about 2 inches, and then they'd have a lot of back issues, a lot of what do you call it? We have bone mineral density problems too. So what our group thought of was an exoskeleton that would apply weight on the shoulders and the spine of an astronaut, and would mimic walking, and would use sort of a liquid magniferous fluid as the motor. So for joints or whatever, so that it would offer resistance on joints is essentially it. So because there's no resistance in space, and it can lead to damage in the joints. So that was our concept, and we actually took it pretty far. We actually took it outside of the school setting, and tried to apply for Canadian Space Agency funding as well. We didn't get it, but we got on the radar. So, and then we've sort of wrapped it up since then as one of our future projects for this group, Exo Plus Solutions, that I'm with, trying to develop technologies for around the bionic industry and stuff. And so that's a little bit of my experience. So I'm just sort of gonna open things up because I want this more to be like a conversation instead of me ranting about myself. I find I'm a creative person. I'm sure you guys all are. You guys have a lot of information plus a lot of questions, maybe for me or something like that. I imagine I'm here for my own very unique perspective on the world. Being, I guess, a business person, being a person with disability. So I don't know how really to open up a conversation, except for just like maybe take questions initially, or if you guys want to tell me sort of what you guys are interested in, what you're up to, projects, anything that you might want ideas or to creatively troubleshoot, solve things, sure.
So I have like a kind of a weird question, but like it kind of stems from like where you come up with ideas for like new projects like exoskeletons and stuff like that. I noticed like a trend in like Asian countries, like Japan specifically, where like they get a lot of inspiration from like the culture and like like you mentioned cosplay, so I'm like kind of like going like a little bit of a tangent to there, but like they get inspired a lot by like some of the animes they see and like a lot of the animation they have for like robotics. I know robotics is huge out there. Do you ever like see that kind of like stuff, like where like you take ideas from like I want to say anime just because like I know there's a lot of sci-fi that has a lot to do with like exoskeletons and stuff like that as well, and like kind of like try to relate it into real life. Sounds like. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely I think that there's a few ways of going about it. I mean, looking at science fiction, saying I can do that, or I've got ideas that'll push that idea along. I love sci-fi. I mean, I watch every bit that I can. Just sort of looking at what ideas are relevant or possible versus the ones that are sort of bunk. When I thought of the space exoskeleton one, it wasn't really from sci-fi so much as just I kept seeing all these pictures of and videos of astronauts being carried out of the spaceship from people and being carried away. And so that I got to thinking, like, well, why is that happening? I just saw a problem, and then people talking about astronauts' health and everything after, and their bone health. So that just more stemmed out of my love for the space sector and seeing a problem and then just like troubleshooting it, right? So can this problem be alleviated and how? Which is kind of funny because I had a conversation with Commander Chris Hadfield about the space exoskeleton project, and I told him that story, that I mean the origin of why I thought of that, and told him about the astronaut being carried away, and thought it was because they were so weak and frail at that time. But he said that it was a sort of a misrepresentation of what's actually happening. They're limited in how much they should be active as soon as they come back to Earth, because the scientists are trying to maintain the stasis of their body, so that when they carry them to the medical lab, and then that's when they do all the tests and everything on them to try to and if they start moving around and being active, then their metabolism starts taking over. So he thought that was very interesting that I saw this problem, and that developed this sort of idea around it. There are other additional problems that the device that we're creating, or hopefully will alleviate. So like the spine lengthening. I think that putting some pressure on the spine and offering resistance in the joints is a very good thing. He said that it's a good technology for the future probably. So especially when there's like long space missions out further than Earth that aren't in the ISS, because ISS has a gym which astronauts spend about 2.5 hours in. So I figured if they had something that was wearable that could resist in the joints, or like be even a workout, so you can have like high resistance and sort of like just in place. You could be at your workstation and then just sort of be doing like different exercises all over the body. Then that'd be good for them. Anyway. Anybody else? Yeah.
So you talked about you talked about rehabilitation devices as well as devices in space. What other directions have you planned on going?
So with the Exo Plus Solutions Group, we've thought of right now the rigidity of the exoskeleton frames are they could be problematic for joints. Like we were thinking of essentially having sort of a built-in shock absorption into the exoskeleton. So that's sort of one idea, is to sort of how to evolve something that like seems so futuristic and so amazing, and we figured that joints could probably benefit from shock absorption. Also going through this myself, as far as going from sitting to walking again, I realized that I skipped an entire step, like a whole medical step, which could be the crawling phase. So I think that there's a lot to, there might be a lot of benefit in somebody with this condition to get down on the ground and crawl first. It resets the balance system. Crawling helps with that, and I guess it's like the old saying, you got to crawl before you walk, and I think that that's true. Now I know, like, I can actually crawl, but it's so slow and problematic on the joints because I've done it before, and I've like just torn up my elbows. And I know paraplegics sort of do this crawling thing, but they, mostly can do a few crawls and then they get exhausted. But if they had something that was like robotic, comfortable to be in, protected the joints, so that's something that it would be a really good technology to have. And so that's some of the ideas that I've thought of around specifically around exoskeletons.
Have you done any work with exoskeletons in terms of like arms and like hand function?
No, I know that there is FES type stuff as far as functional electrical stimulation that's starting to go into exoskeleton technology. I know Parker Hannafin has the Indigo, and they're installing FES in their device right now. But as far as like finger robotics I think it would be fantastic to have that. They have therapeutic robots for the hands, so it's just more to do like finger movements and strengthening, but nothing that's like wearable. That's a device that can then like maybe like my hand can then be functional. They don't have anything like that, I don't think yet.
Mitch, you mentioned that Able Bionics is looking at moving more towards a service-oriented company, so which means it's more of a custom-built solutions. What challenges you have to go through in terms of validation and approval related to the watchdog agencies?
Right. So in the States they have FDA, and then in Canada they have pretty much Health Canada, and they have CSA. So as long as the device falls under those two groups and they're approved, then it pretty much can be used here. So what was the other part of your question? Was validation. So being validated and what needs to happen. I guess it's a good way of saying it. Money, the cost of devices is probably the major hindrance of it. So groups like the accessibility, the Accessible Device Program, so ADP, which provides 75% of funding for Ontarians with a disability who need some kind of mobility device. Like, for instance, my wheelchair is $16,000 for a tilt electric wheelchair, and I only have to pay $4,000 out of pocket. So because of that program, and then they do that. They allow that every 5 years, and then new seating for your wheelchair every 2.5 years that they pay 75% for. So that program is probably one of the most important programs in Ontario for validating, equipment and the things that we use to adapt. But they won't. They right now will not provide funding for exoskeletons, just at the cost that they are right now. So if somebody develops a device that's maybe under $20,000, then probably a campaign to lobby the government to accept this kind of technology as being supported. But right now, insurance companies, WSIB, crowdfunding, and self-pay are pretty much the only ways of affording this kind of technology and therapy right now.
Is it a class 2 or 1 device? Like a robotic exoskeleton?
Yeah, it's a. I knew this. This is on my computer. It's on my extra hard drive, Yeah.
Because it kind of changes your body a bit, so class 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially if you're going up and down stairs, I think that's a big thing. In the States, actually, the FDA won't allow exoskeleton companies that have stair climbing function to turn that function on if you purchase the device in the States, whereas Canada is unregulated in that, so it'd actually be good for the Americans to come up here to get their device and then get it turned on and then go back down.
Are these like exoskeletons more for rehabilitation, or is it more like
Is it more for rehabilitation or what?
or like giving them more of their own independence?
Oh, I'd say that it's definitely like column A and column B. I mean, I've had my device for 5 years and walking in it, so I've been keeping track of my bone mineral density since I guess I had an accident. And so whereas at the very beginning without gait therapy, my bone mineral density was dropping. And then after I started gait therapy, then it has started increasing again, has since like sort of gotten to where my osteoporosis doctor has sort of signed me off and said, like, you're good, you know what you're doing, you're on your way up to like having normal bone mineral density again. So like medically it's assisting. I feel better. I usually have wild leg spasms, and because I don't take any sort of like drugs or anything for getting rid of those. I just sort of, I got off all the prescribed medicine after my accident, just because just everything that I was reading was just like, wow, it's all crazy. So I found that walking helps to reduce that. I started sweating again, doing like all like the functionality that my body was used to sort of having lost was starting to come back just a little bit. Like I was able to feel the bottom of my feet and sort of like almost like my the extremities were starting to like come back and feeling a little bit. And just in general, I was just feeling like just healthier. And then also, independence too. I know a lot of people who get themselves into their exoskeletons who've adapted themselves back to work. So instead of like the workplace sort of having to make things lower or adapt the space around them, they just said like, they would just adapt themselves back into getting back into society and stuff. And,
how often do you use your exoskeleton, and in what setting? Just for rehabilitation, or are you able to use it at home to be able to kind of move around your environment?
Well, my Rex I only use now in a very very sparsely with special events and stuff. Like I did the Accessibility Innovation Showcase in Toronto. I did Chris Hadfield's generator in Toronto at Massey Hall, which was kind of neat, in front of 2,700 people. This like comedy event, and we're like a bunch of like cripples and robots, like, and I'm just like, this is not going to be funny, but it ended up being kind of hilarious actually, because whatever happened, just like whatever came out of me was jokes. So, but otherwise, I use the Exo now. So that's been kind of neat, and I use it every once in a while with the physiotherapist. But I use this other machine called an Origo. It's a tilt table. It's, so you get harnessed into it, and your legs are attached, and your feet are attached to it. and the legs, so the knees sort of are pushed with robotic arms that sort of get you into a walking motion. And so you can kind of stand up and sort of walk and then weight bear on your feet. And I get a lot more steps in that, so so I use that more often for my stepping. My Rex actually might be going into a museum soon. So it's kind of sad because it's like, you know, it's like seemingly like space age technology that, you know, nobody's like barely anybody's heard of yet, and it's going into a museum already. So, but I think it's going to be kind of neat. There's the Museum of Science in Montreal. They're putting on a five-year exhibit called Humans, and it's all the technologies that humans use to adapt. And they were coming up with a display for exoskeletons and called us and then asked us if we can help with it. So that's going to be my way of helping. So yeah.
Do you think your passion for like space started before, or was it because you realized you're gonna have similar bone density issues that astronauts have, and you wanted to solve it for both people?
No, if I had my actual presentation. Sorry, this is like the most boring visual presentation probably ever. But yeah, you'd see a picture of me like as a kid with like, you know, this rocket that we had just sent off. My neighbor worked for Canadian Space Agency and the National Research Council, and taught me sort of everything about physics and rocketry and everything like that. And so I've been a fan for a long time. And then you know, I had to be, 33 or 34 years old when I first heard about the International Space University, which had already been a thing for 25 years. And I was dumbfounded that I'd never heard of it before. So I was like, I need to go there. And all my friends have called it Space Camp since then. So.
Where was your campus?
It was in Montreal. The university's in France, but their summer program goes like around the world. And I guess they were just in Israel this year, and Ohio last year. And since then, I don't know. This is like way off topic, but I just anybody heard of Asgardia?
Yeah.
So I just signed up for Asgardia. It's a space nation, I guess, an attempted version of a space nation. So taking, you know, acquiring citizenship through like all the different countries in the world, and then creating like a nation that will be all about maintaining space as like a peaceful place to you know, to explore and everything. Very nerdy stuff. Right?
They applied to the UN like this week or something.
Yeah, that's right. They've got like half a million people that have applied or whatever. Anyway, yeah.
Are there any like major companies working on exoskeletons, like GE or Toshiba or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Who are they? Not Sony, but it's a Japanese company make cars. Honda. Yeah, Honda. Honda has sort of a device for people that might work in a factory or might have great distances to walk or something like that, and just sort of kind of sit on it, and it just helps with the walking motion. Parker Hannifin's a huge multi-billion dollar medical company, and they bought out a university group's, I think it was, which university was that? I forget the name now. If I remember, I'll bring it up. But yeah, they bought out this university group's exoskeleton, and then turned it into their own product. So they spent a few years developing it, and that's going to be the Indigo now. So, and they've added some things like functional electrical stimulation into it. So they're improving the technology as well. Now we've been approached by Michelin, and one of their companies called Solvay. Anybody heard of the solar impulse? The first solar plane to go around the world. So Solvay developed a lot of the materials that went into the solar impulse, and they're very interested in getting involved with the advanced material sciences of exoskeletons. So they want to be able to like provide materials that are will strengthen or lightweighting the devices, so, or better batteries, stuff like that. So they're really interested in sort of what we're trying to do with ExoPlus solutions, so that they can sort of enter that market as well. So yeah, big companies are sort of always looking for interesting opportunities like that. And it is like a growing, very much growing industry. I think it's, I guess, I forget the name of it, but it's like 72% annual whatever growth, something. Yeah. What's that? CAGR? Yeah. Yes.
Like, since you've got your exoskeleton, would you say that you go to the doctor less?
Yes, absolutely. Tons less. Yeah, absolutely.
Not explain because, like, obviously, like, there's a huge upfront cost to it, but like when you're talking about lobbying the government, like, kind of like justify the purchase, like, obviously not going to the doctor repeatedly seems like a good argument.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of sort of research that's going into what that cost is. It's just such a new technology that's hard to see that, but some things that we're seeing right now are more bone mineral density or less loss of it. Yeah, and then things like people's like joie de vivre, stuff like that, right? It's increasing as well, and yeah, circulation.
So ideally in the future, do you see sort of an exoskeleton that has a large power supply, almost like a cell phone, that you walk around with during the day, and you just charge at night? Like what is the end goal?
Yeah, that's pretty much happening now. Yeah, it's like the ReWalk has about 6 hours of straight battery, straight walking battery if you had to just keep continuously walking it. So you imagine that somebody would probably be able to wear that all day and then plug it in at night. So yeah, there's a few devices that are out like that, but better batteries is obviously like always in the future realms of this technology. Lightweighting as well right now. My Rex was 84 pounds. Our dermoskeleton's 13. So yeah, two different functions obviously, but yeah.
Do you find that they're like, or like, to what degree are they physically exhausting in terms of like, do you go into one for a couple of hours and then you wish you were in a wheelchair again because it's physically?
I think everybody's different as far as like all disabilities, all spinal cord injuries, for instance, are different. Somebody might have better functionality somewhere and less somewhere else, because it's just like typically like that bundle of sort of wires that are in your spinal cord, they can be damaged or frayed in different ways, which just creates a slew of differences between people. Me, I can be in the device. I mean, my first walk was a few minutes before I got sort of dizzy and had to stop, and then I just sort of got better and better at it. Now I can go an hour and a half if I had to when I'm presenting or whatnot. So yeah, I can see somebody wearing this for a while, being a bit exhausted, just being up, because I mean it's not taking 100% of your weight bearing, so things like the attach points and stuff are taking some of the weight, so that might become like sort of problematic after too long in a day. So somebody's going to want a break, but.
So Mitch, in terms of the electronics, other than the power source, what are the additional electronic components in these exoskeletons? And are there any visualization analytical tool, or just to make sure that it's compatible enough for fine tweaking and tuning related electronic components?
Good question. So right now there's a few different sort of ways of interacting with the device. I've seen tablets over Bluetooth. I've seen corded remotes with also some with some sort of like autonomy as well. So things like that have sensors that say if you just have to you have to hit a button for the first step, and then the machine starts looking for the sensor starts looking into when you're sort of angled a certain way, right? So say if I'm walking, then it'll look for lateral movement and forward movement, and it'll like sort of beep and then beep. And as soon as it gets those two beeps, then it'll take the step, knowing that you're sort of preparing yourself for another step. And then you can sort of adjust all those in the UI. Some of the UIs, it's just like plugging. It's like a little box with a computer, and you plug into, and then on the tablet is how you control the device, and then you unplug it after. So you might change things like the step length, or the speed, or resistances, or any of the things that may change the gait a little bit, or improve it for the individual. So yeah, that's what other kind of ways? So it's the Exo. The ReWalk uses a laptop that you plug into the backpack. Kyogo is the tablet. The Exo is kind of neat because it has it's got a BlackBerry phone sort of installed into it, and when it's on, it connects to the internet, and then it's always giving feedback to the company, so the company can always see how the device is being used. My Rex, it's got a SD card in it, and then so they can take the SD card and put it in their computer and then analyze everything that the device has done, so they can actually like recreate every step that it's ever taken visually. It's kind of neat. So yeah, there's a bunch of ways of going about creating user interfaces and being able to visualize things to change settings and stuff like that. Yeah.
It seems like there's a pretty tremendous cost in like starting up one of these kinds of companies, or like getting into the industry at all. I'm just kind of curious, is there like any open source or like any kind of like freely available information about this kind of industry that you could like start working into it on your own, or?
If there was, it'd be on exoskeletonreport.com. I find that they do a pretty good job at covering the entire exoskeleton industry. Not that I've seen it all. As far as I know, the 3D printing is going to be a pretty big thing. So we may see it in the Thingiverse sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like, I've actually seen this before at some prosthetic companies where like they could laser scan your limb or whatever it is in like 9 minutes, and then like spit out another prosthetic for you within like another 15 minutes or so.
Yep.
I assume that like that would be as like a trajectory for this kind of industry where you want to have everything kind of like personally fit to the individual.
Absolutely.
But like, what is a cost of like investing into a company like this? Like obviously you're saying how expensive each individual piece is.
Yeah.
But like what kind of capital do you need to get into this?
Well, just purchasing the device. I mean, as a company purchasing from the manufacturer, we purchased the Exo. It was $90,000 US for the base device, and then $40,000 for the variable assist sort of portion of it, and then $10,000 a year for warranty, and so it covers everything. So that's just that device. The Quebec City company, Patemia, they sell their Kyogo for 45,000 Canadian. So yeah, the ReWalk is 77,000 US for the personal unit. So if somebody wanted to buy a personal device, and then that's sort of how inaccessible the technology is right now. So it's sort of a great cost, right?
Is most of that cost like R&D, or is it like physical?
Yeah, I'd say right now, and probably the lack of lack of a customer base and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think ReWalk's probably only sold less than 100 all over the world. Exo's probably the same. So, and they've been around for 8 years now, something like that. So, yeah. What about you guys? What do you think? Sorry.
Sorry. I'm just curious what you think would, in the future, come first, an affordable, versatile exoskeleton or surgical intervention to be able to either fix problem of disability or to like alleviate some of the range of it.
Right. Actually, I'm sort of I'm a believer that it's gonna take a few things to get people. It's gonna take a combination of like surgery, stem cell, sort of some kind of scaffolding technology, drugs, and robotic rehabilitation. You could shed maybe the robot after sort of a combination of those. I don't know, but it's getting to be pretty wild out there with some of the concepts. I don't know if anybody heard about the first full head transplant that's happening next year. Like, that's weird. like the fact that they the last attempted this in the 70s on a chimpanzee and failed, and like now they're going to try on a human next year.
Every dog they've done so far has died.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's interesting. I'll be the 101st person to apply for that. 101st successful person, but I won't be the first or second. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, what kind of projects are you all sort of working on? I don't know if you guys just want to sort of yell it out or something like that, or you guys have an interest in, or yeah.
I mean, our group's working on an athletic shirt that notifies you if your heart rate changes as you work out. So it can keep you in the correct heart rate zone for the target goals that you're looking for.
Right. So it's like an Internet of Things type device. And so how many of you are working on like an Internet of Things type concept? Just by like show of hands.
A few years.
Sort of. We're doing like a 3D printed processor cannon that's smart, so it has the Ophthalmic Labs.
Yeah, Maya.
Yeah, the Maya band. So we're using that to make it wireless, and then have some trying to connect it Bluetooth to the phone as well. So if you get a call, you can answer it on your press it.
Oh, nice. Cool. I like the Maya. It's kind of neat. Yeah. Are you guys taking into account like the new sort of the new DDoS attack and like the Internet of Things sort of problem?
For ours, it has some connectivity that we can implement in, but it's very much a self-contained device first and foremost. It has that functionality, but what we're focusing on mostly right now is having direct feedback without a display. So the processing is minimal, and the logging exists purely as like connecting to your phone or saving it to OneDrive or SkyDrive or whatever. But for now, it's just the shirt, like the scope is have to remain minimal for the timeline of the project.
Yeah. Yeah, just wondering because it's going to become a thing now, I guess.
Is that something that you're concerned about with like exos, like DDoS attacks and like that kind of general, like?
Oh yeah, I mean mostly for cars, like
yeah, for sure.
Tesla's got something to worry about, I think. Yeah, it's just something interesting now that we live in a world that we have to be concerned about something like that, or else like we can't, use our PayPal or something like that one day, right? For X amount of time. It's really interesting. What else are you guys working on? Or do I need to sign an NDA? Is that
Have you heard of the new campus being built in Waterloo? Starts like all around the IoT. It's like a 475,000 square foot campus for this IoT business startups and stuff like that.
That's great.
Just started
like it's already built?
No, they just started building.
Great. Are you guys going to be?
I think you know Dr.
Julian.
Julian mom.
Yeah, Julian.
Yeah, I work with her.
She's an ISU.
Yeah.
Say hi.
Any questions? I think this is the midterm week, so they're a bit tired, I guess. Let's give a big round of applause.
You guys have any additional questions or want to shoot ideas or troubleshoot anything or I've got a company, Able Bionics, ablebionics@gmail.com is our email, and get a hold of me anytime. Yeah, and if you guys could do me a huge favor, check out Homophobe sometime. See if you like anything. And it's got funny articles and stuff, and share it. But we can definitely use the hits. We're trying to grow